two, one, two, three.
Hello and welcome to Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. Today, I'll be talking with Nathan Sitaraman. He is now chair of the Make Cornell Pay Coalition. I know that Cornell is Tompkins County's biggest employer, so I guess they must have quite a bit of money. They must be pretty big operation. Can you say something about the size of Cornell financially?
Financially, the size of Cornell, there are a couple different ways to measure it. They have their endowment, which is their investment capital, which is now approaching or exceeding a value of about $10 billion. And then their other assets, including land assets and buildings and things of that nature, bring their overall total closer to, I believe, 18 or $19 billion now. And for context, the total value of all taxable property in the city of Ithaca is about $2.5 billion. So the total value of Cornell is something in the realm of 8 or 9 times more than all taxable property in the city of Ithaca put together.
Now, a lot of that Cornell property is not actually in the city of Ithaca, right?
True, it's where the endowment exists exactly is an interesting question, I guess. In terms of the taxable property that Cornell has in the city of Ithaca, my understanding is that they would owe something in the regime of 30 to $40 million in city taxes based on what exists physically within city limits.
But I suppose properties in the medical school that is in New York City are probably much, much bigger.
Yeah, they're much bigger, and their Cornell has certainly expanded far beyond its humble origins in the city of Ithaca. That's a testament in my mind to the success that's been driven by the work of Ithacans over such a long period of time that Cornell has gone from being our little local university that it used to be to now an increasingly statewide and global kind of project.
Well, another way to look at it is if Cornell were a business, a private money-making corporation, then what sort of city taxes would it be paying on the property in the city?
Yeah, to the city of Ithaca, not to mention that all of the taxes it would owe in other jurisdictions. Yeah, something in the realm of 30 to $40 million a year, which would correspond to about a 40 to 50% increase in the city's budget if the city were able to actually tax Cornell like it would tax a regular business occupying that property.
Wow. And at present, there is a memorandum of understanding between Cornell and the city. It its origins are in 1995, which I remember pretty vividly because I was working in City Hall. In fact, I was working for Mayor Ben Nichols when that first memorandum of understanding was negotiated. And I could give some background about why the city you might say, for the first time, desperately needed more money at that time. Uh, Previously, the state had what was called per capita aid. So the state would collect income taxes and pay money to municipal governments within the state, depending on their population per capita. And suddenly, the governor, then Mario Cuomo, withdrew that money in about, I think, 1991. And in fact, very suddenly, and another memory that I have of those years is how the city had to rewrite its current budget that year. So suddenly, a huge source of income had been just pulled away from the city. And the city was desperate. I mean, they were juggling all sorts of things. Ben actually avoided having to lay off employees. But, there were things like, we're not going to hire anybody to cover for people who are absent, people who go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, the people kept their jobs, but their jobs got a little bigger.
Yeah, and they've gotten even bigger in the years since driven by Cornell. There has been a lot of growth locally. And the Memorandum of Understanding, which was last negotiated now 20 years ago, has not kept up with the times.
Well, I understand that recently Ithaca DSA, Ithaca Democratic Socialists of America, got interested in this question of, what is Cornell paying and what should Cornell be paying? But how did that come about?
Yeah, so it came about from a campaign around public transportation in the city of Ithaca, which is a place where, at least financially speaking, more than just about anywhere else, Cornell really relies on a public service, the Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit buses, to not only transport workers and students from their homes to work on campus, but also running buses which just go around campus and shuttle students around campus and employees around campus between parking lots, between buildings exclusively. So, a very fundamental service provided to the university, for which they currently pay $4.3 million, which is a little bit less than a quarter of the total budget for the TCAT system, I believe. And yeah, there's a push to make the system go fare free, which would make it more accessible, especially for lower income Ithacans, and just a more attractive and streamlined option, which would uh, increase the use of public transportation, reduce traffic and greenhouse gas emissions. It became increasingly clear over time that to make this actually happen, to support the increased staffing and increased salaries that would be necessary to make the system function at this higher level, being fare free, having a higher ridership in the future, it would inevitably have to involve Cornell being willing somehow to pay a bigger share than what they're currently paying for the operation of the system that's very essential to them. And it was clear that Cornell was, from the Free Cat campaign, Cornell was not simply going to see reason on this, so to speak, and voluntarily increase their contribution to allow TCAT to go fare free. Is clear that it would take some larger movement, more involvement from local government, more involvement from other major local stakeholders uh, to make Cornell give back to not just TCAT, but the larger community on a big scale to sort of shift the tide on this.
I think you just skipped over a little connection because
Okay.
first you talked about Tompkins County area, no, Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit, which is called
TCAT.
TCAT.
Yes.
And that is why when Ithaca DSA started a campaign to say that TCAT should have free fares to go fare free, they called it Free Cat.
Free cat. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the way we get there.
Yeah.
Now, I must say, I've heard that another problem, and I heard this when there was a rally at Cornell, for Free Cat, and I went up. But we also heard from some Cornell students who were having a hard time getting food, getting anything. I mean, some students are super rich, but some students are very poor.
Yeah.
And another problem around Cornell is the workforce. And once again, there are some very poorly paid workers.
Yes, it's exciting to see movement lately in the graduate student union, in our local UAW chapter, which employs interestingly not only the TCAT drivers, but they also represent a large number of organized employees at Cornell. There's probably another episode on this show where I don't know if you're interviewing Al Davidoff, but he came
Not,
and gave a nice talk here recently about the UAW organizing at Cornell, and it's nice to see that being reinvigorated.
yeah, not, we haven't had a show about that yet, but I'm certainly thinking about it. I mean, I was a library clerk at Cornell back in the late 70s when our joke when we had a coffee break was, oh yeah, in this job, for every foreign language that you know, you get 5 cents above minimum wage. And that was in the late 70s when minimum wage was a lot more significant. Yeah, but
I think the big key here, though, is that while Cornell, from their position, may attempt to paint this as sort of like a either or kind of thing, like if they were to give more money to the community, they would have to sacrifice some of what they're giving to their workers, or vice versa. Understanding the real scale of Cornell's wealth and their endowment and the profits that they're making on the endowment make it clear that this is a false narrative that Cornell would try to put forward, that it is possible for them to do better on multiple fronts, primarily by drawing on the wealth that they've accumulated over the years and drawing on the capital gains that wealth continues to produce on a regular basis.
well, I think I started to say that Ithaca DSA is a pretty small mouse or chipmunk to go after the big bad bear that is Cornell. Are we doing it alone?
Yeah, I think that's exactly sort of what spurred the evolution of the free cap movement, which the free cap movement was really truly a local DSA effort, and it was great for what it was, but it also really sort of put into stark relief that effect that you were saying, that it really did feel like just a relatively small group of dedicated activists going against this enormous institution. So that is what prompted the evolution in some ways to this Make Cornell Pay coalition, realizing that there are all of these different groups locally, each of which is not getting what they really deserve in their relationship with Cornell, and that by uniting our asks into a single platform and putting ourselves together in some way, we stand much more of a chance in these negotiations.
Well, who else is taking part?
Yeah, so at the forefront of my mind right now, to give one example, since I was recently meeting with their union president and some of their other leaders, is the Ithaca Teachers Association, the teachers union. Um, the Ithaca City School District currently receives $500,000 a year from Cornell, which, much like the city's MOU, is far, far less than what Cornell would owe if they were a regular taxpayer. And as a result, the school district budget is grossly insufficient to pay teachers, support staff. They can't afford to maintain a free breakfast and lunch program, which they want to maintain. They can't have the kind of mental health support in the classroom that they'd like to have. All of these different things. And um, so working with them and understanding where the kind of contribution that they need from Cornell to do the job that they want to do serving our community. Um, that was that was a really nice conversation, and we're looking forward to hopefully having the official support of their union in the not too distant future here, where of course the teachers are hugely influential for a number of reasons, not only having many local connections, but also in that for Cornell faculty, Cornell staff, including staff and faculty who Cornell is trying to recruit to Ithaca. These are all people who are paying attention to the school district, and people who listen to what teachers are saying. So I think they're a great example of a really uh, powerful group that's joining this fight and taking a leadership position in this fight to get a bigger contribution from Cornell.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, I can I can see this from a couple of different points of my own experience. Um, the school tax is the biggest property tax that city residents pay. And I say city residents, you write the check if you own your home. If you rent your home, you're also paying it, only it's part of your rent check.
Yeah.
So you don't see the numbers every year. And the other thing that I can appreciate is that as as Slavists, my husband and I actually had friends among some of the faculty who came to visit, and in some cases brought children. And those children went to the schools here, but also largely had to enter ESL programs. They were
Yeah.
usually, over prepared in some things like mathematics, but underprepared in English, naturally.
And one of the teachers I was talking to yesterday was saying they feel like they're on the verge of having to discontinue certain AP programs in the high school, for instance. And if that happened, it would be a uh, disaster um, for all the people who came here expecting that their kids could get really top of the line high school education. So yeah, all of these critical programs in the schools are sort of just hanging by a thread as it seems, as a result of Cornell's very meager contribution financially.
well, I'm again trying to get at what this, and I guess it's a brand new coalition and undoubtedly isn't all assembled yet.
Yes,
Uh,
we've had an official platform for a little over 24 hours as of
that's
this recording.
very new. And so you're dealing with the Ithaca Teachers Union. Who else?
Yeah, so um, there's a lot of groups that we'd like to make contact with. One on which I'm sort of hoping to take the lead is the American Association of University Professors, which is a group of faculty that organize um, often around issues that affect non-tenure track faculty and their compensation and their job security and that kind of thing. But looking at Make Cornell Pay as a place where Cornell's contribution to the city or lack thereof is something that sort of affects all faculty in different ways, from the quality of roads to the schools, to public transportation and other public services, and seeing this as an opportunity for them to make a real difference by getting another important contingent of local workers on board with the effort, and also a great opportunity for them to organize more faculty into their movement. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Off the top of my head, other groups that I'd really like to meet with are the firefighters who, under the current MOU, receive $900,000 a year, which Cornell does not have its own fire department, so they're completely reliant on the city fire department to keep them safe in that regard. And I my understanding is that the fire department sees this contribution as very insufficient, and that's something that I am trying to educate myself more about and look forward to meeting with them in the near future as well.
Yeah, well, I know they face the problem of having to electrify now fire engines. That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I know there has already been excitement at the last Common Council meeting about the fear that behind the scenes Cornell was rushing to cut a deal with the city before a real campaign could get going.
Yes.
Uh, can you say anything more about that?
Yeah, so this has been the main driving force behind the effort to really get rolling on this and to have a formalized platform, because it's it's clear that there's a lot of support on Common Council for everyone. Everyone does want Cornell to increase its contribution to the city, but as of right now, there's a disconnect between city leadership and the negotiating team and the community and their needs. So moving towards a formalized platform for the Make Cornell Pay Coalition gives us something that we can then go back to people on city council, talk to them about this platform, where the items in the platform are coming from, build those connections, and hopefully get people on city council to the point where they're of the mindset they don't want to vote to approve a deal that's not going to meet these needs that the community has expressed in this platform. So that's sort of how I'm seeing this developing.
Yeah, it's a funny patchwork, as you said. The Cornell does not have its own firefighters. On the other hand, they do have their own police force. They have
Yes.
their own water supply, but I don't think they have their own sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
That's the common one. So it's kind of a real mishmash or checkerboard or whatever of where things
Yeah.
are separate and where they are reliant on. It can't be so good for Cornell to stiff the city. I mean, we saw how just at graduation time and alumni meetings, uh, the water mains under East State Street gave way.
There's been an active leak of water just bubbling up through the road on my walk up to work. It's been there for over a month now, I believe, and they still haven't been able to get around to fixing it because the public works is just very understaffed. But yeah, there's been water actively bubbling up out of the road there, and the city knows about it, and uh they of course have a lot of projects and they're working very hard, so they just don't get around to all these different things, but they're struggling with their current staffing levels to just keep up with base level maintenance tasks. Overall, we're replacing roads in the city of Ithaca at half the rate or a little bit less than half the rate that would be recommended. So it's really just a case of the funding for the repair and maintenance of roads is far, far less than what it should be of a city for a city of our size with how much traffic we have.
Traffic generated by Cornell.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nathan Sitaraman. This has been Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. Thanks for watching.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.